President Donald Trump's recent announcement of a 10% tariff on Chinese imports, set to take effect on February 1, 2025, marks a significant escalation in ongoing trade tensions between the US and China. This move follows his earlier plan to impose a 25% tariff on imports from Canada and Mexico, two of the US's closest trading partners. These tariffs are part of a broader strategy by Trump's administration to address critical issues, including illegal immigration, drug trafficking, and specifically the rising influx of fentanyl into the United States, which has been a significant concern. The 10% tariff on Chinese goods is the latest chapter in the evolving trade war, with Trump leveraging tariffs as a tool to recalibrate trade imbalances and push back against what he describes as unfair trade practices by China. The Chinese government has responded with alarm, asserting that there are no real winners in a trade war. Their warnings emphasize that tariffs and retaliatory measures harm all parties, with both economies suffering from higher costs and disrupted supply chains. Chinese officials have been vocal about the dangers of tariff escalation, warning of a destructive cycle of economic hostility that could damage not only the US and China, but the global economy as well. In addition to the China tariffs, Trump has focused on North America, particularly trade with Canada and Mexico. The proposed 25% tariffs on goods from both nations have sparked fierce reactions. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has promised a robust response, emphasizing Canada's critical role in US energy imports and warning that such tariffs would harm both countries' businesses. Ontario Premier Doug Ford has sharply criticized the tariffs, calling them a declaration of war, and announcing retaliatory measures, including a potential boycott of US-made alcohol and targeted actions against products from Republican-held areas in the automotive sector. Volkswagen, a major player in the global automotive industry with manufacturing operations in Mexico, has raised concerns about the devastating impact of these tariffs on the automotive market in North America and globally. The company has warned that American consumers will likely face higher prices on cars and parts, highlighting the ripple effects tariffs have on global supply chains and multinational companies reliant on cross-border manufacturing. Meanwhile, China has been quietly ramping up its own retaliatory measures. Over the past months, China has restricted exports of rare earth elements to the US. These critical materials are essential for manufacturing high-tech products, including electronics, batteries, and military equipment. By curbing the supply of these materials, China can deal a strategic blow to US technology and defense sectors. Additionally, China has reduced its oil imports from the US, targeting another key area of bilateral trade. In response to US tariffs, China has introduced tariffs exceeding 74.9% on specific American products, exacerbating trade imbalances and signaling its intent to push back against what it perceives as economic aggression. Alongside US products, China has expanded its retaliatory measures to include goods imported from the European Union, Japan, and Taiwan, recognizing the broader global nature of economic tensions. The trade conflict continues to affect specific sectors with long-term implications for the global economy. For instance, the US has significantly increased tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles, EVs, raising them from 25% to 100%. The US government argues that Chinese EVs are heavily subsidized, allowing them to enter the US market at artificially low prices, undermining domestic manufacturers like Tesla and Rivian. These measures aim to strengthen the US clean energy sector and domestic production of key technologies. Additionally, tariffs on lithium-ion batteries, a critical EV component, have risen from 7.5% to 25%, with the dual goals of reducing dependence on Chinese suppliers and fostering domestic battery production. The semiconductor industry has also become a focal point in the trade war, as the US seeks to lessen its reliance on Chinese suppliers. Chinese-made components are critical for everything from smartphones to military technologies. Tariffs on Chinese semiconductors are set to rise significantly by 2025, increasing from 20.5% to 50%. The aim of these tariff hikes is to incentivize domestic semiconductor production, and reduce vulnerabilities in key technology sectors. The semiconductor tariff increases align with the CHIPS Act, which is designed to boost US-based chip manufacturing, ensuring the country remains a leader in semiconductor technology and is not overly reliant on Chinese exports. The medical industry has also been affected by the tariffs. For example, the US is implementing substantial tariff hikes on medical supplies from China, including syringes, needles, and certain types of personal protective equipment, PPE. While these goods were previously tariff-free, tariffs will now climb to 50% by 2024, affecting approximately $18 billion worth of imports. These moves underscore the US government's desire to strengthen domestic manufacturing capabilities in the medical sector, particularly in the wake of supply chain disruptions caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. In Europe, the EU has also taken a firm stance against China's alleged unfair trade practices. Starting in late 2024, the EU began imposing new tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, EVs, ranging from 7.8% to 35.3%, effectively raising the highest tariff to 45.3%. This follows an investigation that found Chinese EV manufacturers benefited from government subsidies, giving them an unfair advantage in European markets. The EU has also implemented anti-dumping tariffs in other sectors, including food and agricultural products, to protect its industries from what it considers unfairly priced Chinese imports. Japan and Taiwan have taken more subtle but significant steps to counter China's growing economic influence. Japan, historically having strong trade ties with China, has bolstered its industrial policies in areas such as semiconductors, rare earth elements, and critical minerals, aiming to reduce its dependence on Chinese imports and safeguard its industrial base. Taiwan, a key player in the global semiconductor supply chain, is exploring new economic partnerships to mitigate risks posed by China's increasingly aggressive trade policies. Both nations are actively seeking to diversify their economic relationships to reduce vulnerabilities in their economies. At the heart of these escalating trade measures lies a desire by all parties to protect domestic industries from the perceived threat of unfair competition. In response, China has implemented its own retaliatory measures, including imposing provisional anti-dumping tariffs on polyacetyl copolymers, a critical material used in manufacturing components for industries such as automotive, electronics, and medical devices. The tariffs on US exports of polyacetyl copolymers range from 57.2% to 74.9%, as China views American firms as engaging in unfair pricing practices. Major US companies like DuPont are particularly affected, as polyacetyl copolymers are essential for many industries that drive the global economy. Tariffs on European and Japanese firms, although slightly lower, are still substantial and could force these companies to raise prices or lose market share in China. These tariffs have far-reaching consequences beyond the companies directly involved in the trade dispute. Industries reliant on polyacetyl copolymers, such as automotive, electronics, and medical equipment manufacturing, will likely face higher production costs, leading to increased prices for consumers. The global supply chain is expected to be disrupted, with some sectors turning to alternative suppliers or reshaping supply chain strategies to mitigate the impact. The escalating trade tensions pose significant risks to international relations. As countries retaliate with their own tariffs, the cycle of escalation could result in political fallout that extends beyond the economic sphere. Prolonged trade disputes risk destabilizing the global economy and straining political alliances and diplomatic relationships. The longer these trade wars continue, the greater the risk of exacerbating political animosities and complicating international trade and geopolitics. As these developments unfold, particularly with Trump's assertive return to the political stage and his focus on aggressive trade policies, the coming months will be crucial in determining the direction of these conflicts. Will countries negotiate and resolve these disputes through diplomatic channels, or will the world remain locked in a cycle of retaliation that destabilizes the global economic system? At this critical juncture, Global leaders must prioritize dialogue and negotiation over punitive measures. A balanced approach that focuses on fair practices and economic cooperation could prevent further escalation and secure a more sustainable path for international trade.